They're not nobility. So what are they?
Bierce peered down from a window where all the glass had been broken out. The door behind him opened.
D?
When Bierce turned to look, his eyes were greeted by a man in a yellow robe closing on him. There was no killing lust about him, and yet the warrior's body was rapidly cooling from its core. Within the robed man's hood was a face that some would even describe as refined, and a faint smile now graced it. While he was making a leap to the right along the window, Bierce swung his right arm. His aim was flawless. The arrows he hurled had dropped everything he aimed for until now. As the man in the robe dashed, his right hand flashed out. Striking both arrows with ease, he moved with unbelievable speed toward the rooted Bierce. A broad blade fell toward him. The blow would split him like a piece of kindling. Bierce parried it with arrows in his left hand. Cutting through 2 of the 4 the warrior clutched, the blade got halfway through a third shaft and then halted. Bierce knew he was in a fix. Though he thought he'd been braced well enough to parry the blow, his opponent's strength was beyond his expectations. His feet felt heavy, as if they were sticking to the floor. He could neither flee nor attack. His face still emotionless, the other man put more strength behind his assault. The third arrow snapped. The edge of his blade was sinking into the 4th shaft. The warrior thought, and then even more strength was brought to bear on him.
Is this where I cash out?
The foe's power was focused on the relentless pursuit of Bierce's demise. As soon as he made the last push, the warrior would be finished. Without warning, the pressure abated. Even before Bierce sprang up, the man leapt to the right, putting a scorched automated table to his back. His blade pointed at Bierce. The enemy turned his face toward the door and saw D standing there. Impatience bubbled into his hitherto emotionless face.
Stay out of this.
The enemy turned to Bierce. He seemed to be shouldering the blade of his sword as he charged forward. His opponent's blade flashed out, cutting down the first 4 arrows, and he had speed and time enough to do the same to the remaining 4. However, they evaded a swipe of his sword and sank into the floor, while the timing of the 3rd attack was staggered, scattering the arrows like the seeds of an impatience. Although the enemy had cut down 2 of the arrows, one of the remaining ones pierced him right through the right shoulder to the lung, while the other struck horizontally into the right side of his neck. When 4 arrows had come at him at the same time, the enemy had easily taken them out with his swordplay. But when they simultaneously came from different angles, he was powerless to stop them. With 2 arrows sticking out of him, the foe in yellow simply stood there for a moment, and then fell flat on his back. On seeing this, Bierce finally exhaled.
Well done.
When he looked up, D was beside him. He alone knew the power of the foe Bierce had slain, and for that reason, his praise carried great weight.
You'll have to excuse me if I don't say thank you. I knew I'd gotten rusty, but I had no idea it was this bad. I was so afraid of knowing for sure. I even skipped training. And now it's coming back to haunt me.
With a disheartening promptness, D went over to the window and peered out.
They're not nobility, eh?
Countless colorful forms filled the valley. They reminded the warrior of insects stuffed into a little box. Naturally, they were humanoid soldiers, but there were also spider-like figures clinging to the cliffs.
They're the Sacred Ancestor's army.
What?
Part of the destroying forces were sealed away somewhere to guard against this fortress going back into operation. They were probably in a pocket dimension, though there seemed to be a bit too many for that.
Roughly 30,000. And there's no telling if that's all of them or not. Why'd the fortress start up again?
Because I came along.
And you brought us all here knowing that would happen.
If nothing had been done, those 3 would have died. Besides, it was all of you who decided to follow me.
Bierce was at a loss for words.
I came here to put down a god. However, it's probably protecting you now.